Hi team. So it's going to episode number 72, I think it is. Don't trust me, just look at the title. So I did speak about perfectionism today. I did sit down just before I recorded and I was like, okay, what do I need to speak about today? What's going to resonate? I had a couple of ideas, but this one probably hit hard. Not hit hard, but this one probably was the one that like stuck out to me. Because I think it helps a lot of people. I've been doing a lot of I3s lately and helping people through things. And this one is sometimes just everything that needs to help us is right on the other side of a different perspective. That's what I try to do today. We will try and speak about imposter syndrome next week and my take on it. This is obviously my take on perfectionism, but I don't want it to hold you back. I want you to treat it as a neutral. I want you to see where it's such a gift and hopefully redefine and create a bit more acceptance of self. So I think the narrative lately is like deny self because we don't understand it. If we understand it, we can accept it, right? So I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I did. It is me flying solo again, so enjoy. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Identity Human podcast with your host. And yes, it's just me again. Sorry to disappoint, but Don. And it's great to have you back here. And I'm hoping today's episode is really going to help those of you that need it to help you. So, I'm going to talk around perfectionism and my viewpoint on it. And I think currently we are struggling to recognize the very things that power us and the very things that give us energy because somebody somewhere has created a popular narrative that actually doesn't serve anyone and actually disempowers. And that's why I really want to talk about perfectionism, because especially from a high performance context, and it's, without that as a part of who you are, you're not going to get anywhere. You think about it. If you don't have perfectionism in you, you don't have the ability to see things through. You don't have the ability to say, raise your standards to a level that you can perform, or to be able to pay attention to the detail that's needed in order to produce something intense or impressive or, successful. I think we shouldn't be talking about not being a perfectionist. We'd be talking about how to contextualize it and recognize it when it does serve us and when it doesn't serve us. That's how, I've seen things about saying like nature. Balance doesn't exist. Balance exists everywhere because nature will always find the midpoint. So yes, you do need to find balance, but you don't need to find balance by slowing down your perfectionism and not having it anywhere. Basically recognize that like you're going to have perfectionism somewhere. Great. Embrace that and fully go with it because it's going to serve you so well. But the areas you don't want it to do is in other areas of your life. So, a perfect example is I've got 4 kids. And if I've got perfectionist tendencies, let's say growing bonsais or with rugby or with business and making sure that our standard is high, we want to make sure you've got attention to detail. You're doing things at a level where we're communicating effectively. And if you're not, we call it out, right? You want that in there. Is that going to keep your standard high? But when I come home to my kids, they have 20 years before they're anywhere near needing to think about the perfection that we're trying to raise them to. Yet we will go home sometimes and expect them to be perfectly behaved kids right now. And it's like, we live with grandparents, we live with a lot of people here, and we have to constantly remind all of us that, like, we've got a 10-year-old and a 2-year-old, and we're expecting sometimes the 2-year-old to sit at the table at dinner time as if he's the same as the 10-year-old. And so you can either get really annoyed by it and like, oh, you never sit at the table, and you get really strict, or you realize that you lean on this actions speak louder than words. And if that 2-year-old sees us sitting at the table every single day for dinner, and he sees the 10-year-old doing it, and he sees our 8-year-old doing it, and our 6-year-old also then gets distracted by the 2-year-old, but they eventually see that consistency is what they do. That they will learn by mirror neurons that's what they're going to do. So that context of perfectionism, that like, where does it apply? And that's what you've got to do. So I have actually started to plan instead of just going ad hoc all the time, because I think sometimes it's important to get a concise, specific message without going too far off piste. And I think today was important because I want to introduce some concepts. And this is often what I say in our personality profiling in the one-on-ones that I talk to people, that there are different types of perfectionism from how I see it. Now, I'm not sure if this is out there already or if it's not, but there are different types of perfectionism. And the simple way I'd put it is there's long-term perfectionism, which is high standards, and that's where you're always comparing yourself to. And because you're always comparing yourself to that, you're more likely to be sad or less confident or have, say, imposter syndrome, because you always know that that's your standard that you want to be, and this is the standard you're at. Okay. I'm hoping that's simple. If you're watching the video, I'm doing some hand illustrations to emphasize what I'm saying. Or you get short-term perfectionism, which is basically, I need that now, and that's got to be perfect now. And it's like, well, why does it need to be perfect now? Because that's how it works. Now, there are, in the profiling that we do, there are 2 traits, 3, maybe 4 traits, but one trait is definitely like in the now perfectionism. And that's an amazing gift. Like I would call it, they all, like, these traits are your gifts, right? They're things that gives you energy. And that trait, superpower. Honestly, sometimes I look and I'm like, how on earth do you do that? Like, it's incredible. In their right environment, they're absolutely fizzing. The problem is, if you have, let's just say, I actually said this to someone yesterday. So you've got 5 pillars of prosperity, for example. You've got one pillar where you need to be perfect and perfectionist, and you can be and you should be, right? Yes, apply that. But the other 4, let's say one is work, one is personal, one is social, one is family, and I'll eventually, if I talk about this enough, and I'll make a note for this, 5 pillars. You want to realize that, like, in that one context, that pillar, incredible to see that person flourish. But what happens if you don't realize context as that perfectionist? You go into your other 4 pillars and you try and make those things just as perfect, which means you walk in the door and the house has to be perfectly tidy. And if it's not, stress, frustration, anger, right? If you walk in and you see someone misbehaving, stress, frustration, anger, conflict. Okay. If you walk out and about and someone is not adhering to the rules as they should, stress, frustration, conflict, because it's like, I know the rules one may not be the best example, but I really want us to think about, if you recognize that you've got these perfectionist tendencies short term, and what would you need to look out for there? So very detail orientated, as in someone that is like, your books are pristine, your handwriting is great, you've got tabs on all of your different things so you can open up the right time. You've got a system that you can repeat, and it works really well, and it's super efficient. And then you also notice that if anyone tries to change that system, it ain't going well. And if you want to learn a new system, you're going to need a lot more detail before you actually understand that and really feel comfortable using it. So you'll always feel uncomfortable with change, uncomfortable with you'll need the detail for you to feel confident. That's how you could recognize that short-term perfectionism, right? You also would probably come across as a problem fixer. You see a problem, you want to fix it. You see a problem, you fix it. And you're very good at fixing those problems. Okay, so I just want you to think about, if that's you, the best takeaway I would say is try and think about a timeline. So I'm showing my 2 hands right now if you're not watching the video, and they're about 5 meters apart, shoulder to shoulder, half a meter apart. And you've got the now and you've got the then, or where I will be, or my future. A short-term perfectionist, keep that. You're not going to get rid of it. It's part of who you are, right? You don't want to suppress that perfectionism. You want to contextualize it. So take your now and put your perfectionism in the future. So you say, I will strive to that perfection, because you know you ain't going to get rid of that, right? We talk about this being like your chimps are your gifts. The chimps act out your gifts. That's how they get energy, and that's why they drive you on your subconscious. Is you've got where you are now, where you want to be, and you just give you as the human, the awareness, the consciousness in this, is you got to tell your perfectionism chimp, you're in the future and I am working towards you, and I need you to tell me where I need to see the detail. And by the way, when we go into work mode and this needs to be perfect, I'm clicking into you. I need you here now. But for the rest of the things, I want you to just expand your timeline, expand where you see you're being perfect, and just give yourself a bit of room to breathe. Because what happens when you go, okay, I will be perfect in the future, I will strive towards that, because some people say never strive for perfection. I'm like, well, your idea of perfection will always change depending on how you raise your consciousness, what you know. So if you just push it towards the future, you will then have this self-compassion, be like, okay, where I want to be isn't where I am. Therefore, where I am, I need to just learn. And because I'm not perfect now, I can make a mistake, and that's okay. So I think sometimes we want perfectionism so badly that we don't want to make mistakes once we get it right. Because when we make mistakes, it's not perfect. Okay, so if we can expand our timelines and send that perfectionism to the future, it's going to allow us to start to take steps towards that without it being something that really stops us from taking action and really stops us from, like, really makes us hold on to what we've got. So I just want you to think about that for yourself. Expand your timelines if you're a perfectionist in the now. Now, there is a different type of perfectionism, I think, that comes into it, and that's what I call like long-term perfectionism. And this is, you already naturally will be thinking really high standards. What I said at the beginning, this is where I am, that's where I want to be. So you can think about ambition, but it's almost really high standards that if you don't forget, I mean, if you don't remember that those are 5 years down the line, what ends up happening is you compare yourself to that in the now. And I know this sounds like I was just talking about it, but in reverse, because it kind of is. But this isn't about detail. It's about where I want to be and where I am. I'm so far off that I can't do it. Right? I'm not good enough. So your imposter syndrome could come in here, but it's not as much feelings of anger and stress as much as it could be sadness and lack of confidence. So you could be lacking confidence because you have high standards. Okay, so you think about that, but you've got to remember your high standards are something that you're chasing, that you're not currently are right now. And if you can remind yourself again of that timeline, it's like, listen, I know that you've got this perfect vision of where you want to be in 5 years' time. But remember, that's in 5 years' time. So the same concept applies to your long-term perfectionism people, to your short-term. It's like, it's long-term. So that's okay. Take some action, learn, see how you feel, think about what you can learn to get to one step closer, and go for it. Just embrace that higher version of you that's inside, that is going to drive you to achieve the things you want to do. It is going to drive you to be the person that you want to be. It's like, okay, that's your driver. Like if that's your vision, if that's your energy thing, if that's your gift, because it is tied to a couple of gifts. Like I said, there's 3 different traits immediately that I think of, that if you have this that runs you at your core, this is what you get energy from. This is your gift that you're meant to give into the world. You can't deny that, because if you deny that, it's never going to end well, because it's always going to be there. It just turns from a positive into a negative. So, for example, it could be, if you're not operating on your instinct, then it turns into fear, because your instinct is telling you something's going to happen. And if you operate and take advantage of it and you listen to it, you're going to work well with it. But if you don't listen to it and you deny it, then you're going to be fearful of everything. So if you don't listen to your chimps, you don't listen to your gift like that, you don't embrace what you've got, you're going to be suppressing it, and it's going to come out in ways that you don't want it to, whether that's fear, anger, stress, bitterness. All of those things are going to start to manifest inside you. Sickness, you're not like your lack of energy. All of those things can be related to how you're seeing your world, how you're trying to suppress things because you read a LinkedIn post, you read an Instagram post of like, don't aim for, are you a perfectionist? Well, I get rid of that. It's like, no, you won't. You won't get rid of a perfectionist tendency, because it's an inborn trait, right? It's what you've got. What you will do is you'll learn to contextualize it. 2 examples. It's like taking a bucking bronco, a wild horse, and putting it in a horse pen and trying to get on it. What's it going to do? It's going to buck you off, right? You're going to get injured. You're going to hurt. It's going to kick you. It's going to want to bolt. What you've got to do is you've got to spend time in there. So if you watch The Horse Whisperer with Robert Redford, and he just spends time like connecting with that wild stallion. So if you think about this in our example and how I would take you through this, is you got this chimp inside this cage, and you're not getting in there with it. Like, it wants to beat you up because you've denied it and all that. But actually, you've got to connect with it, and you've got to teach it a language. You've got to make it more aware that, in the right time, you are incredible, but you can't be like that all the time. The other example, if you've ever watched X-Men, Cyclops, I think his name is, when he shoots red out of his eyes, right before he meets Dr. X, anyone, like if your friend or foe, his eyes open, he just destroys everything, right? That's perfectionism. If you haven't got the awareness, if you haven't got the context, it's just destroying everything, right? He's looking and he can't see what's happening. He's like, then he closes his eyes, right? Till he gets the goggles, and then he can control it. What he can control is he puts it like right context, right? Laser focus. That's where I'm going. Instead of doing everything, I'm just going to go that. So I want you to try and think about if you've been following some advice from whether it's mindset advice, mental health advice, and just self-growth, and there's things that have always been inside of you that someone has now said perfectionism isn't healthy. Okay, they're right in a context, but they're also wrong in another one. Is you can't deny those things that are deeply inborn in you, because that's what you're here for. What we've got to learn is to raise our awareness, raise our consciousness, raise our understanding of ourself, to realize that actually I need to bring my perfectionist tendencies into this project, into this detail-orientated job that I'm doing, because that's what I'm here for. And that I actually really, really, really enjoy doing it. It makes me feel so good. But when I go into a friendship circle, when I go into somewhere else, that's not where I need to. So I'm just going to be aware that I could see what I would do, but I ain't going to do it. Okay. If you can start to practice that. Now, remember, if you raise your awareness and you can start to realize where you're doing this in all bits of life, just try and focus it in one area and start to see that it's not going to suddenly change your life. You're going to have to learn and learn and learn. You're going to have to, let's take that 5 pillars example. You might recognize it where you're doing it in one pillar and stop doing it. You're going to be like, that's amazing. I've made some progress, some real growth here. But actually, you still feel like it's still getting on top of you. Like, oh, there's my perfectionist tendencies. I've tried all of this effort, but it actually hasn't made a difference. It's not true, because it's made a difference somewhere. And if it's made a difference somewhere, keep going, because it'll start to create momentum. Then suddenly another pillar will start to take over, and you start to recognize where you're doing it. And then all of a sudden, you start to get a deeper understanding of self. You start to get a deeper understanding of the right context. And all of a sudden, you're able to hold your own. You're able to channel your perfectionism in the right way. You're able to then get more confident. You're able to get less stressed. You're able to get less angry. You're better connect with people better. Okay, you're able to become more efficient, heads clearer. And it's nothing massively tangible other than creating awareness around what is your tendency, like what is your thing, what's your gift, what gives you energy. So if you want to know where I get these from, this is all from loads of different personality tools and traits and stuff. And I obviously specialize in I3, which is very individualistic and probably can be quite confusing to some. Not confusing necessarily, but it really embraces the individual rather than compartmentalizes people. And one of the traits does tend to have perfectionism in the short term, higher up. And every time I talk to people about this, they're like, that's so me. That's going to be really helpful. And you do see it, because I get to sit in front of people and I get to say, this is amazing. Like, look at your gift that you've got. Look at what you can do with it. And they're just like, I feel so seen with that. Like, it really has helped me recognize that where I've been going through life and trying not to be the perfectionist, trying not to go ahead and just take over, I now see where my gift is, and it's helped me understand where I can put that context, how to put almost a structure to that thinking that you didn't know how to before. It almost takes you from a unconscious incompetence to a conscious incompetence, where you realize you're doing it and you realize you got that perfectionist things that's not serving you, and you switch it over to a conscious competence where you're now trying, and then all of a sudden you will start to naturally do it. So I think it's one of those where I love the fact that I have the platform. I have somewhere that is going to help someone out there that is really struggling with perfectionism. And we will lead into imposter syndrome perhaps next week, if I remember the link. But link as in the link I'm making here. But I really want to summarize and take home the point that if you think you're a perfectionist, amazing. Stop trying not to be one. Let's use that as a neutral. Okay, and I want to bring an analogy of a pendulum. I always do this. Like, that's why that's on my wall behind me on the video. You'll see it's actually a pocket watch hanging from a drawer, but for me, it represents a pendulum. So you've got a pendulum that swings, and I want you to think about perfectionism as this line underneath it. The pendulum is swinging from one extreme to the other. Is you've got people that don't have any element of perfectionism in them. Let's talk about short term. Is they don't care about detail. They don't really care about getting things finished. They'll just switch from one thing to another. They'll change all the time. And then you get 10 out of 10 perfectionism. And this is like, hates change, loves details, super efficient in what they do, but can hold on to that. And you've got to think about you're the one that's got that pendulum. You've got to be aware of that swing and which context you need that 10 out of 10 in, and which context you probably need to lean to like a 5, 4 out of 10, right? Everything, nature always finds a midpoint. Nature never lies. So the more midpoint you can find, the better. Because if you're in that midpoint, it's creating this really good rhythm. I'd like to call it a rhythm. And there will be times you swing towards the plus 10s where you start to, like, you really need to be perfectionist. Great. But swing that back down to the middle, right? And then there will be times you swing towards the 0 out of 10s, the 1 out of 10s, maybe not as a perfectionist, but other people. And that, like, everyone has to learn to swing that pendulum to that midpoint. I think at the end of the day, we all like dancing. We want to find a rhythm. If you can do that for all of your traits, all of your tendencies, all of your gifts, and you're not just swinging wildly left to right with this pendulum of life, the pendulum of personalities and characteristics, and you can find that midpoint, that's going to help you the most. But you do that by creating self-awareness. So if you want to know how, I'm not going to tell you how, because that would be too easy, and you're not going to appreciate as much if I tell you the answers. But on this pendulum swing, let's say, for example, you are this perfectionist 10 out of 10, and you've just created some self-awareness. All of a sudden, that self-awareness doesn't get you to that 5 midpoint rhythm, great. But what it does is it makes you recognize when you're constantly swinging up to the 10 and allows you to catch yourself. And you can catch yourself at the 9, and you catch yourself at the 9 out of 10. And then you swing back to the middle and you come back up. You swing back to the middle, you come back up. And then you catch yourself at the 8. And eventually, you will be able to catch yourself at like your 5 or your 6 and swing you back down. Again, that's, if you want to be a high-performing perfectionist, that's how it's got to be, is you've got to learn to catch yourself and bring yourself back. The same way we talk about flow or focus is you can stay focused. Everyone gets distracted. It's just how long does it take you to bring yourself back from distraction? That same, it's the pendulum swing, right? The pendulum will go into every context in life that we can talk about. Actually, I'd like you guys to comment and see if I can't put the pendulum in. But even with focus, you've seen Djokovic talking about it on the court. Like, he's a tennis player, he's bouncing the ball up and down. He says the difference between him and a person that's not a high-performing athlete is that when he gets distracted, he breathes, brings himself back in, bounce, follows his process. But if you don't make it to that level, it's because you bounce, get distracted, start to think about other things, you try and serve, and you mess up your serve because you didn't bring yourself back in. So it's that same analogy, same thing, is I want you to think about how you can bring yourself back to the midpoint as often as possible by being aware of your different tendencies, the thing that gives you gifts. Try and think about, if you are a short-term perfectionist, try and think about where you can recognize that, how you recognize it, so that you know what to look for. So if it's at work, are you getting impatient or upset because you haven't got the detail that you need to make a change? Where, say, someone in your team goes, oh, guys, we're going to use a new system, and your first reaction is, oh, no. Or they then start to say, we've got the system meeting, can you go and try this? And your first reaction is panic because you don't know, you don't have enough detail. That's an example of it. It's like they're asking you to do something that you don't know, you don't need the detail. So obviously they can communicate in a more detailed manner, understand your personality, your type, and how you operate. But also at the same time, it's never about trying to get everyone else to change to suit you. It's always about how you can understand you to suit everyone else as often as possible. So that you can ask more questions. You can go and find the detail you need to do in order to operate what you need to operate. Or just start to back yourself and realize, that's the same program as that. There's some similarities. I'm just gonna start to take steps and see if it works. So, I mean, yeah, I'm going to stop talking there. I don't want to keep these episodes too long. I do want to talk about imposter syndrome next week because, yes, I'm going to use it as a neutral. And yes, I think it is a complete and utter shame that people have, demonized it, because I do imagine, and I'm open to this, that there are people that genuinely have imposter syndrome, like where it's a big issue, and it really does hold them back. But I also think that there's a lot of people out there that, and if this is you, maybe take some salt in your wound, that you will think that you have imposter syndrome, and you don't. You are just aware of your long-term perfectionism, or there's a lack in confidence that everyone has at the beginning of a job, except a few traits. Again, I could explain this through traits. If we were talking about all 7 traits, there are some that just won't have it because of the way they operate, but they don't have what you have. You have what you have because the way you operate will be so much more efficient given time. Anyway, I'm getting into it. I'll get into it next week. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this week. I hope you really just, if you've got any questions, please do ask. If you want to know more, go to www.identityhuman.com and just sign up to the waitlist, and you'll see emails come out. You'll see the challenges come out. And if you do want to work one-on-one with me, then please send me an email at team@identityhuman.com, and we'll get in touch with the interview process. Like I love working one-on-one with people because I can really get focused in on you. But at the same time, I also just love being able to add value in any way. So thank you very much for listening. I really appreciate you. I hope you're having a great week so far, a great day, and you finish off your week really well. Bit of advice: create some Hemingway bridges this week. Hemingway bridges, as a reminder, are if you're writing a book, you don't end your writing session at the end of a chapter. You end your writing session by writing the first sentence of your new one, which is done the creative thing. It's like opening the door. So try and start to do that this week for next week. Try and start to do anything this week that's going to help your future self to create a bridge to make it easier, especially when you're in flow and going for things. Okay. So thank you very much. I will sign off the same way we always do. Remember, Ubuntu, I am because you are, we are who we are through others. I'll work on me for you if you can work on you for me. Cheers.